Hi, my name is Sean. I recently completed my Nitrox training, and as part of that had to figure out how to use my watch for a Nitrox dive. This is not a discussion about how to use Nitrox itself, but simply how to configure Suunto Zoop Novo to dive Nitrox. There's two steps. The first is to actually tell the watch that you're going to be diving Nitrox instead of straight air, and then the second is to tell it the exact blend you're using, and also if you need to calculate the MOD while you're getting your air, then it'll do that at the same time too. So from the main screen, we hold down the select button, or the down button rather, which puts us into the menu. And through here you can go through the various settings. But the one we want is the first one, called dive mode. You hit select, and this takes you, by default, it's in air, which means you're diving standard 21%. You can cycle through Nitrox, gauge mode, free diving mode, and then off mode. So what you want is obviously Nitrox mode, and then you hit select. So mode to get out, I'm back at the main menu. My watch is now in Nitrox mode, but during a dive, I'm going to have to actually tell it which blend of Nitrox I'm going to use. So for that, we get into dive mode. So I already cycled through it. So we go from time to dive, let it do its self-test. By default, it's at, I've already set it. I was setting it to 32. So here it's ready for a dive, basically. Same kind of idea. I hold the down button. That puts me in my dive settings mode. I select Nitrox diving. You can see the oxygen percentage is flashing. That's telling me that that's the number I'm going to be working on. I can set my oxygen percentage and see at the top how, as I cycle through my oxygen percentage, my max depth changes. So the maximum operating depth for, say, 26% is 137 feet. Then if I'm okay with 26%, I can select that, and now my partial pressure of oxygen is flashing, which is kind of your safety factor. Defaults to 1.4. You can change it to all the way up to 1.6, or down to 0.5, I guess. But you can see that as you change, your depth changes. So as I am willing to take on a higher partial pressure of oxygen, my depth goes down. So I'm going to go with 1.4 because that was the safety factor I was trained to use. Just kind of an interesting note. This is the chart for that was in my book for actual mix. It's based on the math, not based on what the watch is. You can see that at 1.4 and 26%, it's actually saying 144 feet, but this watch says 137 feet. And it was just explained to me that's some kind of safety factor on the way they're calculating things. So if I'm okay with this mix, I hit select, I'm back, and I just can get back into dive mode. So here I am, I'm diving 26% oxygen. If you want, as you're diving, these two items can be changed. So you've got either on the left, it's either your max feet, it's the time, or your oxygen percentage, which if you're in air mode, that's not an option, that latter one. Here the dive time is one option, your temperature is another, and then your current partial pressure of oxygen is another one. And I think there is a OLF, which is not something I'm concerned with, but I will leave a link to that somewhere. So that's how to configure the watch in Nitrox mode. One important thing is all watches seem to behave differently with respect to how long they keep your settings good for. This one seems to keep your settings forever. That is, some watches will reset back to either 21% oxygen or out of Nitrox mode each dive, or maybe every 24 hours. This one will keep it. That 32% was the one I'd actually configured in my class. I had switched it back to air mode for this video, but I took my class several weeks ago, and this watch was still in the configuration it was ready to dive from that class. So that's how to configure a Suunto Zoop Novo for Nitrox. Have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thank you.